Well, there is a joke among preachers that we preach what we most need to hear. I suspect this might be true this week. I suspect this because I've had a lot of trouble figuring out what to say. So much so that I tried really hard to avoid it, to make this Sunday's theme about something, well, anything else. But I just kept hitting a wall and wanting to simply give up on it, which is kind of the point. Well, partly. There is something in this scripture reading about the value of giving up. Because in the end, we are just tiny grasshoppers in this giant field of a world. And you'd think that nearly 11 months into this pandemic, I would have reached this point sooner. That we have all learned much more than we ever wish to learn about what we do not control. And indeed, that is true. But as members of a Protestant church community, we have this history and this culture steeped in the concept of striving, based on the values of hard work and frugality. That if we can stretch our resources, which we're really good at, and if we try hard enough, we can conquer anything. In the midst of an uncontrollable world, we're still in charge of our own destiny because God helps those who help themselves. But lately, that's not really how I'm feeling. I'm tired of this now, aren't you? I know we all have our ups and our downs. My worst day may not be your worst day, and your discouraged day may not be my discouraged day, but I'm so weary of it all. It's been a lot. I've had enough. And I don't think I'm alone in that. It's a sentiment that I hear around me all the time in one way or another. You see, there are different ways of being tired. Physical weariness is the most obvious, but emotional and spiritual weariness are also realities. Perhaps you've seen that thing circulating on social media. It has this person with this giant boulder on their back, and the boulder itself says, the cold of winter, plus a lack of sunlight, plus lockdown, plus the uncertain future, plus the whole of last year generally, plus the unrelenting news cycle, plus that email you've been putting off, plus the lack of human contact, plus some other stuff you can't quite put your finger on. And then the caption is of the person saying out loud, I can't quite work out why I'm so tired lately. The odd thing about this time in our lives is that there are some of us whose lives are full of pressure and activity. People who are coordinating vaccine rollouts come to mind. Or those who are running businesses, for example, who have had to switch up the way they offer all of their services. You know who you are, because you are as exhausted as maybe you have ever been. And then there are others among us who have less activity in our lives than we've had for a long time. As Barbara Lundblad says, your burdens may be no heavier than a cell phone. Your physical labor no more demanding than pushing buttons on your washing machine. But you still know what it is to long for rest. Or you may have no work at all, laid off after 25 years at the same company, or trying to find your first job after high school, or the jobs you do are just not allowed in lockdown. Your days are not filled with work, but neither are they graced with rest. Some of us aren't at rest because of what's bothering our minds, or our bodies, or our families, or we don't know why exactly. And then there are those of us who maybe do this to ourselves more than anything else because we act like the only time we have done enough is when we are running on empty. We all still live in this pressure cooker, sky is the limit world of more and better and faster. Yes, even in a pandemic, when we are not permitted to be satisfied with the pace of things. And for Protestants in particular, there's this level of exhaustion that can come simply from the striving approach we sometimes bring to life and faith. Those of us who aren't so good at letting things be, but try to fix them or mend them or help them or manage them because it is our responsibility as faithful citizens in the world. And we can find ourselves in these times trying our best, but coming up short, which is not only tiring, but discouraging. I wonder if any of this was at play for the ancient Israelites in the midst of their exile. Some of it, I think. Although not with the details, for sure, that we have, and not the Protestant need to pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. But the feeling, perhaps, of taking a step forward only to take 2 steps back. Feeling blocked at every turn, of trying your best to thrive and persist through challenging circumstances only to be exhausted by it. These words were written, proclaimed for a people in exile, worn down, discouraged, in it for the long haul, not knowing when it would end, not seeing a way home. And Isaiah speaks to his people to remind them that God's perception of circumstances might not match their vision of it. God's got a bigger view. Have you forgotten? Did no one tell you? You are but grasshoppers in this mighty field. You can't possibly do everything or know everything. In fact, argues Isaiah, you can do nothing on your own, so enough of your dispiritedness. It's not all on you. God's got you, so stop being discouraged by what you can't accomplish. I wonder, in the weary times, if we need to be reminded that it's okay to stop, to give up, to give in. Enough now. What is. What will be, will be. The well-being of the universe is not ours alone. Grasshoppers sometimes need to be reminded that they are not, in fact, lions or bears or birds. Have you ever looked at phrase give up in the dictionary? To give up does not actually mean failure. It doesn't mean not good enough. No, it is to yield control or possession of. Those of you with experience in 12-step groups know the value of surrender. Turns out the first step is understanding that you are in a circumstance you can't fix by yourself, and that you need to hand it over, pass to another, lift from yourself the burden, and realize you need a little help. I find a disability advocate, Elizabeth Tarney's example, useful in this regard. So think about something you cannot possibly do, like, let's say, picking up an elephant. No matter how hard you try, no matter how creative you might be, you could work yourself to exhaustion until you are utterly spent. But you are not picking up an elephant. What is the harm of letting someone else take over? Your buddy over there has a giant crane with a conveniently elephant-sized sling attached. He's even got the key in the ignition. All he needs is a nod from you, and he'll fire that sucker up. You can even help him get the sling underneath the elephant's belly. So what exactly is wrong with that? The answer, of course, is that there's nothing wrong with that. Even if the preferred method of picking up elephants is not via giant crane. When we give up, when we give in, who knows what other possibilities may find their way. Now, those like me who get uneasy with all this giving up talk need not worry that there is nothing for us to do. Although some of us might be better off if we made some space and did nothing for a bit too. But for those of us who have gone into hiding, or are sick and tired of doing nothing, or doing the same thing over and over and over again, let us go back to that elephant, for we do have a job to help line up the sling. The body of Jewish law and legend called the Talmud says this: "Do not be daunted by the enormity of the world's grief. Do justly now. Love mercy now. Walk humbly now. You are not obligated to complete the work, but neither are you free to abandon it." And this too we hear in Isaiah's proclamation. Think about his metaphor of grasshoppers. They are a rather impressive insect. They're one of the most surviving and successful species on the planet. There are 18,000 varieties of them. And they have wings, just like eagles. And while they cannot soar exactly like eagles, they can leap 20 times more than their own body length. And my favorite grasshopper fun fact is that they have 5 eyes. They can look forward, to the side, and even to the back. So being a grasshopper in this field is not without its rather amazing abilities. But as long as I remain down in the grass, content to only look right in front of me, I quickly become weighed down by stuff that doesn't really matter. Annoyed by the attitudes of others, caught up in my selfish struggles, wondering why my grass doesn't taste better, or that I'm going to run out of grass altogether. Listen again to what Isaiah has to say. "Look, grasshopper, you have eyes to see. Why have you not seen? Look around at the big world. Behind and within it all is your Creator, who has the expansive power of life, a power that can make even a small grasshopper soar like an eagle. Weary, weary people, do not fear. You need not close yourself off and do nothing as if nothing matters. There is an energy in God that can lift the most tired of souls, and we will move on together. We will bring meaning together. There is a hand waiting to help you up, and in this knowledge may you find rest. In the meantime, let me leave you with a blessing for all who are feeling hollowed out by what they have been through. The words are Jan Richardson's. This blessing keeps nothing for itself. You can find it by following the path of what it has let go, of what it has learned to live without. Say this blessing out loud a few times, and you will hear the hollow places within it, how it echoes in a way that gives your voice back to you, as if you'd never heard it before. Yet this blessing would not be mistaken for any other, as if in its emptying it had lost what makes it most itself. It simply desires to have room enough to welcome what comes. And today it's you. So come, sit in this place made holy by its hollows. You think you have too much to do, too little time, too great a weight of responsibility that none but you can carry. I tell you, lay it down, just for a moment, if that's what you can manage at first. 5 minutes. Lift up your voice in laughter, in weeping. It does not matter. Let it ring against these spacious walls. Do this until you can hear spaces within your own breathing. Do this until you can feel the hollow in your heart where something is letting go, where something is making way. Amen.